In this podcast episode, hosts Miami and Jonathan Cohen continue their conversation with spiritual teacher and intuitive Lee Harris, who channels a group of spiritual guides known as the Z's. The discussion explores the evolving consciousness of humanity amid a chaotic and corrupt global power system. Key topics include the intentional erosion of human rights, the crumbling of centralized systems, the rise of grassroots movements, spiritual empowerment, the role of fear as a controlling mechanism, and the growing interaction with galactic consciousness and extraterrestrial beings. They also delve into practical advice on personal growth, navigating intuition versus fear, the dangers of division, and the transformational potential of the next 5 years for human consciousness and societal change. Lee Harris channels the Z's, who emphasize that humanity is living through a revolutionary period marked by the exposure of corrupt power systems. The erosion of human rights worldwide is intentional, driven by dominating forces aiming to maintain control. However, while centralized systems appear to be destabilizing, this collapse is unfolding slowly to avoid complete chaos. As old structures diminish, grassroots movements and individual empowerment rise to fill the resulting voids. The Z's maintain that the goal of these forces is to keep people physically here, but restrict their freedoms, playing on fear to impose control. Despite these dark realities, there is an abundance of angelic and energetic support working behind the scenes to counterbalance lower agendas, though mainstream media often fails to acknowledge this. A key warning from the Z's is the deliberate manufacturing of division. Creating enmity between groups distracts and weakens collective human power by turning communities against one another. Listeners are urged to resist engaging in divisive narratives and to avoid judging or targeting other people or groups unjustly. Instead, the focus should be on calm, loving communication that shares personal truths without the aim to convince or attack. The Z's acknowledge that some loss of connection, whether friendships or partnerships, due to division has caused pain, but encourage individuals to find common ground with aligned people and amplify acts of love, compassion, and higher consciousness. The conversation highlights the dangers of centralized technologies and media monopolies that enable excessive monitoring and control of populations. Instead, the future calls for decentralized, regionally adapted systems that protect privacy, freedom of movement, and free exchange of ideas. The Z's caution against wishing for rapid systemic collapse, which would bring devastation and chaos. The unfolding transition will be gradual, allowing for innovation and the emergence of new, resilient structures created by grassroots groups and empowered individuals already working behind the scenes. These new models will reflect varied cultural and regional needs rather than a one-size-fits-all global governance that inevitably collapses under internal conflict. Fear, especially fear of death, is framed as a primary tool of control used by dominant forces. The inevitability of death is accepted, but the question shifts to how one chooses to live in response. Instead of succumbing to fear, the listeners are encouraged to embrace their soul mission and personal empowerment in these transformative times. The Z's stress that humanity's collective consciousness has already surpassed old systems, leading to a clampdown from the powers that be, who are trying to trap people before they become too powerful. This resistance is not about relying on external saviors or heroes, but about internal awakening and collective movement toward freedom, rooted in love, light, and elevated consciousness. An intriguing aspect discussed is humanity's growing awareness of galactic origins and interconnectedness. Earth is seen as part of a larger galactic consciousness and tribe rather than an isolated species. Extraterrestrial contact is not a new phenomenon, but will become more visible and normalized, including some disclosure of secret information. However, disclosure efforts may be accompanied by misinformation campaigns, so discernment is critical. Many technological advances are believed to have extraterrestrial origins, and those who have historically been hidden are expected to come to the surface more in coming years. This rise in galactic interaction parallels the spiritual awakening occurring on the planet. Lee Harris emphasizes the necessity of personal development alongside spiritual work. True intuitive guidance can only be discerned when individuals understand their own fears, trigger points, and motivations. This self-awareness allows them to differentiate between fear-based reactions and genuine intuitive nudges. Intuition is not an instant or static trait, but a skill developed through observation and honest reflection. Harris cautions against using spirituality as an escape from life's challenges, which often leads to confusion rather than clarity. He advocates for a balanced approach that combines spiritual insight with practical self-exploration, healing, and emotional regulation. The Z's highlight the importance of maintaining sovereignty over one's inner being, especially when overwhelmed by constant dark news or divisive energies. Overexposure to distressing information can overwhelm the nervous system, diminishing one's ability to think clearly or act from empowerment. Self-care, nervous system regulation, and setting boundaries around media consumption are vital for sustaining long-term engagement with these challenges. Spiritual activists and sensitive individuals must learn to refill their energy reservoirs to avoid burnout, since the transformation unfolding is a sustained, long-term process, not a quick fix. Looking ahead, the Z's share a hopeful vision. The next 5 years will witness the unprecedented rise of human consciousness and the emergence of light warriors. These individuals channel higher vibrational energies through their words, actions, and hearts, catalyzing healing and transformation on the planet. Humanity is becoming more embodied in its consciousness, integrating spiritual awareness into physical reality without hierarchy or superiority. They stress that different forms of expression, some psychic, some grounded in love and action, are all valid and necessary. This collective rise represents a new paradigm of interconnectedness and empowerment, breaking free from the fear-based control systems. A more intimate discussion touches on soul groups, past lives, and the dynamics of personal relationships. The hosts and Lee's guides share that many have interacted across multiple lifetimes in varying roles: friends, partners, adversaries, creating complex energetic fields that influence current interactions. Recognizing these dynamics fosters deeper empathy, stability, and collaboration in shared missions or personal growth. This understanding extends beyond romantic partnerships to friendships and professional relationships, providing a framework for healing, learning, and co-creating in the present. The episode acknowledges the difficulty in navigating the modern information landscape, saturated with conflicting narratives, bias, and emotional manipulation. Lee Harris notes the importance of increasing awareness of how mainstream media often packages information to evoke specific emotions, such as fear or anger, which serve control agendas. Developing the capacity to sniff out emotional manipulation is part of spiritual and personal maturity. Listeners are encouraged to seek clarity without becoming overwhelmed by the kaleidoscope of opinions, to hold a zoomed-out, gentle perspective on what is presented to them. Throughout the conversation, Lee Harris stresses that channeling the Z's is not just an abstract spiritual exercise, but a lived, embodied experience that connects universal wisdom with personal growth and transformation. His role is as a conduit, translating complex energies and messages into actionable insight tailored for the current moment and audience needs. He balances channeling with being a grounded human who faces skepticism, public scrutiny, and personal challenges, modeling authenticity and courage amid uncertainty. Towards the end, Lee Harris shares information about upcoming live events, including a 6-day Soul Magic retreat in Santa Barbara and a North American tour. These provide opportunities for deeper immersion into energetic teachings, music, and personalized intuitions. Such gatherings are described as powerful spaces of community and transformation, where collective energies can amplify individual and group healing in supportive environments. In response to a question about whether Earth's evolving consciousness might impact other civilizations, the Z's confirm that Earth is part of a galactic experiment in consciousness. Lessons learned here ripple outward and may influence broader cosmic dynamics. Past experiments, such as Atlantis and Lemuria, serve as archetypal references for the current cycle of awakening, highlighting the balance between technology, ego, and spiritual evolution. Humanity's journey is therefore not isolated but embedded in a much larger universal story.